Hello everyone, and welcome to the European Sim Racing Masters, here presented by ACI Esports. I am Connery Medic, and I'm joined by Tyler Maxson for the English stream here today. We have our Spanish broadcast partners over on ACI Esports _ES. So if you want Spanish language broadcasting, then that is the place to go. Track information up on screen for you now. You can see we're at Circuit Gilles Villeneuve to start off the season here in the European Sim Racing Masters. And of course, we also have the cars. There's going to be an interesting situation here in terms of this season, because we start off in one car, we end with another. And for the first stage of this particular competition here, Tyler, we start off in the Mazdas.
And we start off here round one in Montreal in the Mazda. It's a very tricky car to drive around here, especially with the new tire model. Could definitely prove to be quite a challenging circuit for the drivers to master.
Schedule is up on screen. This is stage one of competition here for this season. We start off at Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, move on to Lime Rock Park for round two. We finish off the stage at Donington Park, and then after that, we'll move on to stage number two, and with a different stage, we have a different car. We'll be going to the GTE machines for stage two, and stage three, we'll end up in the V8 supercars. Of course, the organizers seeing those cars as sort of a progression of difficulty, Tyler.
Yeah, they certainly are. I mean, you go from a car that's very low horsepower, it's a pretty easy car to drive, then you move up into the GTEs, they're a little bit more difficult, and then you finally end off in the V8 supercar, which for a lot of drivers is going to be quite the challenge, because it's not like anything else that they've driven before.
Yeah, so if the V8 Supercar is really one of those cars where unless you've driven it before and know its intricacies, then you're going to have a lot of trouble. Meanwhile, here are your prizes up on screen. 6,000 euros in total to play for here across this season. 2,000 euros going to the first team there. Of course, 1,000 euros, and you got that split all the way down. So if you finish inside the top 10, in terms of your team, you'll be getting yourself at least 150 euros. The drivers, top three for them, though, 300 euros for the top driver, 200 for the second place, and 125 to the driver that comes in third in that situation. So it's a healthy prize pool to be competing for here.
Yeah, it certainly is a very healthy prize pool indeed, and really, you will be earning it, because from what the looks of it, it's a very close championship thus far, just looking through the practice times and then moving over in towards qualifying. It's definitely going to be a very competitive race here at Gilles Villeneuve.
That's the important thing as well, because for this round one of the season, everyone has been split based on their pre-qualifying times. So it's usually after this first race, driver will instead be split by driver performance rating, which is their own built-in system, which evaluates drivers taking into account their speed, safety, cleanliness in driving in order to group them according to their level. So it will be very interesting to see how that one works out. Meanwhile, you have car information and race information up on screen. And we start off, like we've already said, with the Mazdas. 60 minutes race, open setup, not all that much to change on these Mazdas, though that will more come into effect when the GTEs and the V8 supercars decide to grace our screens. And you can see the instant breakdown at the bottom as well. So if you get 15 instant points, you'll be assessed a stop-go penalty. Same with hitting 5 more into 20. And then if you hit 25, that's it. You're done for the race.
Yeah, and that's a very crucial thing. This is not one of those circuits that's very easy to pick up off-tracks on. It's not one of the more off-track intensive circuits, but still, you don't even want to be getting anywhere near that 15 incident point mark, because if you do, then you're going to have quite the issue with that stop and go, especially in these Mazdas. It's going to drop you down a lot of time, and it can drop you out of the draft, which basically means race over.
Yep, it can. The point system up on screen as well. 50 points to your race winner. 45-41, and then getting a little bit closer as you go down the order. Finish 25th, you get a single point. Pole position, 3 bonus points for pole position in qualifying, and for the fastest lap of the race, you get 2 bonus points. So You know, even for those drivers further back in the field, there's certainly all the more reason to go very hard during the race, especially when you consider that fastest lap bonus point being a thing there. So that could shake up the order somewhat. And if we have a championship that's very, very close at the end, those pole positions and fastest laps might matter.
Oh, they certainly can. I mean, those can be some of the time the make or breaks in the championship. They're only 2 and 3 points, but those 2 or 3 points could certainly mean the difference between winning and losing the championship, especially in cars this close. I mean, these MX-5s are incredibly close in general. They really don't have a whole lot that you can make up so much in setup, and you really have to just be able to outdrive your competitors.
Yeah, absolutely, and you can see that, well, we're currently just waiting to get our qualifying session underway here, so we're just a couple of moments away from that, but these are some of the best drivers, primarily from Spain here, going to be taking part in this race. Of course, for this season, they did open up a registration to a lot of other countries, but it is still very much at heart a Spanish league, and we'll be seeing a lot of their top talent inside the server here today, and it's going to be an absolutely crazy strength of the field as well. We're talking upwards of 5,000 being the average I rating here today, so that's certainly going to play host to some fantastic racing.
Oh, it certainly is. Whenever you have drivers of that caliber all racing together, especially in these very slow MX-5s, it's just a formula for great racing here, and I think we're going to see it all the way through. But a 60-minute race that may make a few people get a bit spread out, but from the looks of the way the Mazdas work, it's still going to be, at heart, a very close front battle, in my opinion, towards the end of that race.
Yeah, it's a really interesting one because you have one of the most basic cars on the iRacing service, yet they're going into one of the more technical and tricky circuits that iRacing has. You know, this is for all intents and purposes a street circuit here at Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, so those walls do come up on you very close, and with these Mazdas, there's a lot of close side-by-side action, and that can be particularly sketchy when there's not a lot of room for error.
Yeah, certainly could be, and you don't want to be one of those people who just gets pushed off a little bit and end up into one of the tire walls or concrete walls around the circuit, because if you do, that's pretty much day done, because these Mazdas are very fragile cars. I mean, if you hit them into the wall, they pretty much can get steering damage very easily, and they can lose a lot of time with bodywork damage, especially. So it's going to be very tricky if they do end up making a bit of contact and they do end up hitting a wall, because that's pretty much going to be day done for you. You're going to be pushed straight to the rear of the field.
Yep, you will be, and you know, that's one of the big reasons you have to be so careful around this circuit. Another thing as well will especially feature on that opening lap. It's a very short run until turn 1 from the front of the starting grid here, so there's not a lot of room to try and find your way in single file. So more than likely on the first lap of the race here, we'll see a lot of action coming through that first sector, because everyone's still going to be stacked up 2 by 2.
Yeah, they certainly will be, and that could be good or bad depending on how patient these drivers are, because if some of the time, if you have a bit longer run, everyone can kind of get themselves sorted out, but with this, everyone's going to be very bunched up like you said, and everyone's just going to have to be very patient here on this opening lap, because the first sector is a pretty tight turns 1 and 2, and that can easily cause some incidents and end races before they've even gotten started.
Yeah, so cautious on the first lap, cautious through the first couple of corners, because you don't want to have a terrible start to your season already here in race number 1. We do have a couple of Mazdas that are out there on circuit right now, just waiting for practice to end here before we get to the start of the qualifying session. And with the prize breakdown that I mentioned at the very start of the broadcast, Tyler, the 300 euros for the first place, 200 for the second place, and 125 for third. That is for each every. Well, it's going to be for the drivers' championship here. So there's sort of a split teams and drivers championship here, which would be particularly interesting, considering if 2 drivers from the same team are close in the championship, then they're going to also be wanting to try and finish above each other in that drivers championship. So we might even get some inter-team rivalries going on.
I mean, you certainly could see that. I have seen, but you also don't want to create one of those incidents where you could have won the championship, but instead you took each other out going for the Drivers' Championship lead either. So these drivers, they definitely have to be careful with what they do, especially if they're fighting with their teammates. But it's definitely going to be a close one. And as I think qualifying has just ended.
Yeah, we won't get coverage of qualifying, unfortunately, but we'll get the start of the race then, as we'll just wait to see how the starting grid stacks up here for race 1 of the European Sim Racing Masters. It's David Perez, pole position for MSI Esports. Victor Prieto there in second place. You see Dia Hugo in P3 and Fernando Busquets P4. Victor Lopez P5. Eric Salazar P6. Ricardo Rico in 7th place. Sergey Maturana will start in 8th place. We've also got ourselves, as we cycle things further back, 9th place, Sergio Ferrero. We've got Thiago Carvalho in P number 10. Outside the top 10, though, to start, Francisco Asensio. You have Edu Morales in 12th place there for Obsidian Racing. A lot of big names in terms of the teams as well, with MSI, Obsidian, etc., etc. S2V Esports also involved, as we'll get a quick look at the rest of your grids here. Of course, more than 20 cars. Xavier Ross, P21. You've got Fensola also further back there, but we're just about to get started here. And in fact, we have already started. Look at the launch from pole position, though, from David Perez. He leads by a comfortable margin down in towards turn number 1 for the first time. Single file for your first 5 cars here. We've got battle for P number 6 going on, though. There's almost a little bit of contact between them, but they'll be able to recover at this stage. You see the car of David Perez lead them into the forest for the first time. MSI Esports, good start to the season, good start to the race for them. We have 60 minutes of racing underway.
Yeah, 60 minutes of racing underway, and these guys really got off to a nice start. No major incidents, though. I was actually quite surprised not to see anyone spun around in the first few corners, but the battle for the lead is raging on between David Perez.
Yeah, Perez leads this one from the very front of the field at the moment. And quickly, well, there's going to be a driver behind him that's sort of keeping him honest right now. But of course, this is the first lap of the race. We'll see how this one develops over the 60 minutes that we do have to run here. We've got Victor Prieto behind him. Busquets is currently in P3. We can look down to P number 18, P number roundabout, sort of break into the top 20 here. Xavier Ross here with his teammate heading his way in towards the hairpin for the first time. It's going to be one of the big overtaking zones here at this racetrack. You see the number 25 trying to squeak their way through there, and that, I believe, the 29, excuse me. So that was Christopher Romero trying to pull off a move in that situation, and now down the back straight for the first time here. Perez still leads from Prieto, and then Busquets rounds out your podium at the moment. But it's been a very, very calm first lap there. That's surprising, because usually at Circuit Villeneuve you have multiple bits of contact into turn 1 for the first time, but everyone keeping themselves calm and keeping themselves clean. And as a result, we have all 25 cars running in the same pack here at the very start.
Yeah, all 25 cars still running as we ride on board here with Victor Prieto. He is now chasing down your leader, David Perez. And as they round down through the downhill chicane, they're going to get very, very close to that wall. And as the tires wear out, it's only going to get harder to go through that chicane as fast as they're going to have to. You're really just going to have to let the car kind of slide through that chicane. As it does in these Mazda MX-5s, the rear end can be a little bit of a handful sometimes, especially when these tires are very cold like they are. But now it's a battle for the top 3, and they've kind of pulled away a little bit from the rest of the field.
Look at Busquets, though. He's saying, well, excuse me, that was Perez actually going all the way to the inside to try and do something about breaking the draft to all those cars behind, but I don't think he's going to have much luck in doing so at the moment. You can see P2, P3 separated by 0.3 of a second at the moment. You see Hugo, though, trying to at least have a little bit of a look over Ricardo Rico there, who currently is in P4 and almost presses those into the back bumper of the Mazda ahead of him, but no contact made between the two of them as this train will continue on down the back straight.
Yeah, they'll all continue there. You'll see the driver in third place, he doesn't want to get in the draft. It was right on here with Ugo. He's now chasing down the number 51 just ahead of him, but you can see some of the drivers don't want to be in the draft. Some of the drivers do, as we see this great camera shot there of how close they really get to that wall. Heading out of the final chicane. It's a very tricky final chicane because it's so easy to push in just that little bit too hard and end up slapping the inside tire walls. We head to a replay.
Yeah, you can see Prato down the inside of David Perez, so change for the race lead into the final chicane. So now it's S2V Esports that leads this one from MSI Esports. Fernando Busquets, though, still in third place at the moment. He's on the outside looking in to this situation. Look at that, almost stacked up too deep there into the first chicane of the lap. We're on board with Victor Lopez, who's currently in P6 right now. He has lost one position on his qualifying. He started in P5, but losing one position here this early on in the race is not going to do all that much. Meanwhile, over the battle here, Francisco Asensio currently in a battle there with the Sergei Maturana. They're so close. They're still side by side in towards the next chicane. Now Morales decides to get himself involved. He's in that number 41 on the inside, and he's able to squeak his way through. So Asensio getting swamped by a couple of Obsidian Racing teammates at this stage. He's the lone Zenith Esports car involved in this.
Yeah, he's certainly getting swamped indeed, and it's so difficult whenever you have so many teammates around you as he makes the dive down the inside. And he will get that position up into P11 for Francisco Asensio. But back to what you were saying, though, it's so difficult whenever you have a lot of teammates around you, all trying to fight you, and you're the lone car in that train. It can be a very tough battle for you, just because of the fact that they are most likely in communication with each other. It's very easy for them to coordinate moves and shuffle you down a lot.
Morales again down the inside of the final chicane. That's that number 16 demoted back one more position. You can see again how close they get to the wall of champions coming off the corner. Meanwhile, we shift our attention back to the race lead. As you see, Victor Prato leads this one at the moment. He got that pass done at the end of the first lap into the race lead, and now it's David Perez's turn to be the driver that's chasing. But you can see on the bottom right of your screen, Tyler, that he is losing a bit of time here over the first couple of laps that we've had. So Victor Prato, even though he didn't get pole position in qualifying and get those bonus points, he certainly has enough race pace here to deal with Perez.
Yeah, he certainly does, but even in those first few laps, it's really nothing to almost go by some of the time with those drivers, because some of the drivers have a setup that's more geared towards the latter stages of a stint. They're more geared towards the very worn-out tires. Some drivers will have a setup that really comes in fast and then almost falls off a little bit. So it's nothing too alarming, I wouldn't say, for David Perez, but right now he's got the 22 of Vasquez all over his rear bumper.
Yeah, Busquets now looking, well, he's been on the outside looking in for the opening couple of laps here. Hasn't really gotten himself involved in the side-by-side battles just yet. And, well, if he feels like he's being held up by Perez here and wants to go chasing after the race leader, then getting this pass done sooner rather than later will be absolutely beneficial. But he also has to do it very, very quickly, because if he is in an extended side-by-side battle here with Perez, that just means that Prato is able to extend that gap even further at the front of the field and potentially even break the draft as well. So Busquets really, really needs to calculate this move. Where and when is he going to make it without losing too much time?
Yeah, certainly has to think about a lot of stuff there, because, like you said, they don't want to have Prato get too far out in the lead. We know that he's got pace. He's able to pull away even in the draft. As we look back here a little bit further down the field, we're just kind of cycling through. But like you said, I mean, they don't want to let Prato get too far out because they know he's quick. I mean, he was able to pull away even whenever they were in the draft. So if he's able to break that draft, who knows how far ahead Victor Prato is able to get.
We're right on board with Montana at the moment, currently in P number 16. here today as he tries to chase down Adrian Beza, who's in that number 71 car for Zenith Esports. And you can just see that some drivers do not have the team association right now, but of course you can see the livery on that car, certainly denoting that he has friends out there. Meanwhile, at the very front of the field, Fernando Busquets looking to be the driver that probably still sparks the flame here inside this leading group. But he simply hasn't been in a good enough position here to try and haul himself up onto that second step of the podium at the moment. On the brakes into the hairpin, he can close up a good amount coming into here, but it's also important to get that exit for that run all the way down the back straight. And on this occasion, it looks like David Perez has been able to get the better of that as we look through at the moment. See this pack head their way down the back straight. It's currently the leading pack of about 5 cars at the moment, so those guys have broken the draft, it seems, to a lot of their competitors behind. But as I said, another battle in this pack can bring so many more parties back into the swing of things. Out of the final corner. Oh, there we go. That's Preto. He's pushed wide somewhere. He's got a slowdown penalty, and now he has to cycle back all the way behind that leading train of cars. And Victor Preto, unforced error across the chicane there. Exit is fine. He must have taken one of those apexes a bit too deep and gotten the slowdown penalty.
And you can see another replay here as well. I believe this is Edu Morales. I think he came into contact with somebody here down into the chicane, so this final chicane is seeming to prove to be quite the challenge for these drivers here in these Mazda MX-5s, and he's just going to get turned by, I think,
Number 16.
Number 16. So those two make contact, and Morales, I think that is going to be his day done.
Yeah, that was Francisco Asensio, that was also involved in that little bit of contact. Meanwhile, as a result of Preto's slowdown penalty, it now means that David Perez leads this race from Busquets in second place. Ricardo Rico now on that final step of the podium. So that's shaking things up a little bit here right at the front of the field. I'm very curious to see if Preto actually still has the draft of the leading pack here, because that'll be so important for him, and if he can get a recovery drive going here in the final 50 minutes of the race. But it's better for something like that to happen at the start of the race, Tyler, than the end, because now he has all this time to try and do something about it.
Yeah, he still has 48 minutes left in this race to be able to close up to that leading 4, and really it didn't even hurt him that bad. He only got dropped down to about 5th or 6th position, and he's not too far off the lead draft. So if these guys start to battle and they start holding each other up, he'll be right back there again and able to get back through that pack.
You can see how heavy these drivers are taking that final chicane as well. You can see why Victor Preto, sort of pushing the margins a little bit too fine, has picked up a slowdown penalty, especially with these drivers taking as much out of those apexes as is possible. But you can see a 5-car train has become a 4-car train, although Victor Preto, he certainly has a lot of pace behind the wheel of that car. There's no reason why he can't lock onto the back of that train once again. Meanwhile, battle for P6 out there. Victor Lopez and Thiago Carvalho here. MSI Esports versus 10 Factory Sim Racers. 0.3 of a second between the two of those guys right now as they head their way through the exit of the first sector, and they'll continue on their battle through the first sort of sweeping chicane here at Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. As these guys right now, they're hoping that Preto can perhaps be the bridge between themselves and that front pack.
Yeah, I mean, if these two guys can just lock onto the back of Preto, they can probably just let him tow them straight up to that front pack, and then that front pack of 4 could turn into a front pack of 7 very quickly if Victor Preto is able to do that. But we focus now back on your race leader, David Perez. He currently leads out the 4-car train, but look at how much Preto closes up there under braking.
Yeah, Preto particularly good on the brakes, and now he's solidly within the draft of the leading 4 cars right now. So expect him to, become a factor once again in the not too distant future. See the long run down the back straight into that very tricky final chicane. Busquets is closing in. Does he decide to go for the move this time? It looks like he's just going to stay in line. And on previous occasions, he has shown the nose down into the braking zone of those final couple of corners, but on this occasion deciding not to do so, and Perez actually gets a massive run coming out of the final chicane, so he's able to make his race lead secure. Meanwhile, battling for positions just on the edge of your top 10 here. You see Sergio Ferrario also involved in a battle with the 3-2-1 car that is directly ahead of him. That's Maturana, and you also have a teammate behind him as well that can basically play rear gunner for him at the moment.
Yeah, exactly, can, and that will almost help him out from the driver who's just on the edge of that train. I mean, having a teammate behind you gives you almost the freedom if you want to try a move on the driver ahead of you. You know your teammate will be able, like you said, be able to play gunner to you and just be able to push you off the corner even if you can't quite get the move done, and you won't lose any more positions after that one, unless you really mess it up and your teammate absolutely has to go by you, but it's very rare that is that case.
555 will be safe for now. Obsidian Racing attempting to have a big showing in this event. See sort of in the background though with the driver of Gomez and Martinez. They were getting relatively close, but they've separated themselves out coming down into this particular chicane. You see further back as well Mark Montana here with Adrian Beza. So Zenith Esports, well, that's what Mark Montana has to deal with at the moment. Asensio's going slow though. What has happened to him? We'll have to see what has happened here into the braking zone. Was it contact? Was it just a single car error? We'll have to see. On the brakes he goes into the corner, and that was maybe a bit of a tag from behind there from one of the S2V esports cars. Yeah, David Jimenez perhaps getting into the back of him there. Didn't quite get the best of views of it, as we'll show into live pictures, but yeah, that's unfortunate there for Asensio.
And look, they're side by side for P4 right now. Down in towards turn number 1, Victor Prado. He may be able to get the move done, and yes, he will. Victor Prado back up into the 4th position. Now he has to chase down the top 3. These guys have been incredibly close all the way through this race. But you can see it, the number 119 didn't get quite the run that he would have wanted out of the final chicane, and Prado took advantage of it.
Yeah, that's simply what you have to do at a circuit such as this, where it's pretty tough to get those overtaking moves done. Yes, there are heavy braking zones, but they're not places where you can just sling yourself past and then call it a day. You really have to work at gaining positions here, and if you can capitalize on the mistakes your opponents make and get by that way, then that would be the faster way to do things. A little mistake, though, for Prado coming through that chicane might have just given another opportunity here for Hugo to work his way by, but it doesn't look like he's going to be able to do so right now. You see that those leading 3 cars still sort of have a little bit of separation between them and the second pack, but this is going to be gobbled up though so quickly.
Yeah, it most certainly will. I mean, that second pack is very large. It's 4 cars deep. So the battle for the lead here in just a few moments. If Victor Prado can really tow that whole second pack up to the leaders, then it's going to be a fight, a 7-car fight for the lead. And that's going to be a large strain with 43 minutes left in this race.
Yeah, still plenty of time and potentially plenty of action to see here. So that's particularly exciting. Busquets right now, he's just playing it safe at the moment, not going for any wild moves, and you don't really need to do so when you're this early on into the race. You can just be a little bit more careful and then see how things work out for you a little bit later on. But that's only really a luxury that these guys at the very front of the field have, because if you're in the mid-pack sort of situation, you really want to just keep going forward and trying to gain track position. Otherwise, at the end of the race, you'll still be absolutely nowhere. So sometimes it's nice to be at the front like this.
Yeah, it certainly can be. Some of the time, it's a bit more stressful, then some of the time it's a bit more relaxing here, as Busquets almost had a run on the number 95 of David Perez, but couldn't make anything of it then. And this front group is now a group of 4, but that whole second pack was not able to come up there with Victor Prado.
Yeah, but it looks like they've got the separation once again, so Prado, after dealing with those cars, now is on the back of the top 3 all on his own. Busquets excuse me, it's more Perez taking that very shallow line through that wide right-hander, trying to make sure the opponents behind him don't sit inside his slipstream. But I'm always scared that someone will just go for a late-breaking, committed move around the outside there and cause him a bit of a problem.
I mean, it certainly could, but I'm actually kind of confused here of why Busquets is not just tucking into the draft of David Perez, because a lot of times that'll gain you more time than not being in the draft, and it could allow one of your other components, like the number 51, to fill that gap, and then now you're suddenly on the outside looking in.
Yeah, that's the big thing, and it's what I've seen actually quite a few drivers do, not just in this series, but in other series as well. They're not trying to get the max of the slipstream possible, which personally I thought was a mistake, but there must be a reason that some drivers do decide to do that. You can see the sparks, though. So it was driver ahead, I think it was Busquets, that was pushing very hard through the exit of the final chicane and actually grazed that wall a little bit. So that was the reason for the sparks there. And you can see these drivers really... Oh, that's third place right there. Ricardo Rico going very deep into turn 1. Meanwhile, Maturana, he's decided to bring that car down on towards the pit lane, and he's not alone either, as Carlos Fenolosa is also in on the pit lane. So those guys coming down in maybe to get a bit of damage repaired at this stage in the race, which you wouldn't complain about, especially if you're sort of towards the back of the field already. Try and get as much done as possible in the pit stop service, and you'll be okay as far as that's concerned, and you'll at least have a clean car until the end.
Yeah, at least it will be a comfortable car to drive for the next 40 minutes out here. So we've gone down 1/3 of this race. We still have 2/3 left to go. And you can see Busquets all over the back of David Perez now. He's looking for a move possibly, and maybe trying to get himself up into the lead, but he doesn't want to battle too hard, because you can see that whole second group. It's still a 3-car train, and they still have the opportunity to get up into that lead pack.
Yep, they are. So things still very close at the very front of the field. Ricardo Rico, that was pushed a little bit wide through the middle of the hairpin there. Might have given an opportunity to Prieto, but that was a sort of deal where the inside opened for a second and closed the next second. As you see the top 8 up on screen for you now. Perez, Busquets, Rico, Prieto, top 4. And then the rest of them, Hugo, we've got Lopez, Carvalho, and Adesanya rounding out the top 8. But here comes the move for the race lead. Then Busquets down the inside, and he's gone too deep. Actually, he heads to the pit lane. That's the tricky situation with pit entry there. You have to take such a different braking zone compared to the rest of the field going into the final turn normally, and Busquets just able to manage to head his way down the pit lane. So we had a couple of early stoppers from the back of the field, and now we'll get to see a couple of the front runners come down in for their first service of the day around about 20 minutes into the race.
So a lot of Obsidian racing cars heading down in. One STDV Esports car of David Yamanez, and as we check back in on your current race leader, David Perez here, it's still a 3-car train for the race lead, but it'll be interesting to see where everybody else comes out, whether they're going to come out in traffic or the drivers who put it a bit early, maybe they come out in a clean track and possibly looking to get an undercut here on your current race leader of David Perez. And the other interesting thing is going to be, how does Perez respond to that? Does he come in this very next lap, or does he keep running his race and he just comes out where he comes out?
Yeah, that's the big thing. And of course, with those drivers sort of have been in the middle of draft packs right now, they're going to have the best of times when it comes to these fuel stops, because they were able to take a little bit less fuel than the rest of their competitors, have a little bit of a faster pit stop time here. As the pit stop times so far have been around about 23 to 24 seconds. So that is around about the margin. That'll be the average here for these drivers. So we'll definitely pick up on the fact that if someone takes a little bit of a weird stop, we'll definitely know. But now is the decision for the rest of this leading pack. Do they decide to dive themselves down on towards the pit lane this time? Or do they go one more lap We're just a couple of moments from figuring that out. As you can see, Rico looking his way down the inside there. But Perez, he does bring that car down onto the pit lane. So, and it looks like a decent amount of cars behind, there we go, have also come down in. And everyone's come down in so far. So a little bit of a split in terms of strategies here in terms of exactly which lap people come down in on. But on this lap, it's seemingly everyone else.
So everyone else is diving in. That entire front group is into the box now. David Perez, who was your leader, here's Hugo in that high-speed Demons car. He just came down in a pit lane last lap. Let's see where he cycles out here as he heads through the final chicane.
Oh, that's a massive slap, though, on the exit of the corner. Struggling to keep a hold of that car. That will compromise his speed all the way down into the first corner. You can see the rest of the cars starting to head their way off the pit lane right now. Looks like Perez has just been able to get himself to the race lead. Hugo, though, can he slot into second place here? Looks like he's just been able to. I think that's Lopez behind him that has just lost out on second place. So Hugo, that's actually a decent stop for him, as he's able to slot himself into third place, excuse me, there, as actually it was Victor Lopez that was the car that was absolutely brilliant inside the stops there, as now it's an MSI Esports 1-2.
MSI Esports leading out this race with a 1-2. Then it's High Speed Demons, Ori Hugo. He's sitting down at third. What a strategy, though, that was, because he was nowhere near that front pack. He was all the way back in the second pack, probably about a half a second to a second behind them, and then somehow comes out in the pit stop phases, and now he's sitting in P3.
Yeah, one big reason for it, he did take a relatively short stop, 22 seconds compared to the rest of your race leaders that are doing around about 23 and a half seconds on the pit lane. So Hugo really did get a bit of a boost coming through that pit stop cycle, and now can he hold on to this track position will be an important thing, and MSI Esports are hoping that he holds up everyone behind here.
Yeah, they certainly will be. But a 1-2 result, that would not be a bad finish for MSI Esports. They still have 35 minutes to go, keep in mind. They certainly don't have it anywhere near secured. And with how competitive that front group has been today, I don't think that the battle for the race lead is anywhere near over.
Yeah, I don't think so either. Still a lot of fast drivers in that train. You see Alpha P9 up on screen for you now. Obsidian versus Karuma Motorsports. That's Ferrario versus Martinez coming through this particular section. And their way through the exit there. And we also see there's a couple of MSI Esports car in the back here. Actually, is that Perez? Or is that... Oh, no, it's not Perez. Excuse me, it's number 17, which is Lopez, that had a big moment coming through the final chicane. And he's taken a bit of a slowdown penalty as a result as well. So he gets filed back a little bit behind a good couple of cars. He currently sits in P number 5, but it's another top driver, Tyler, that's fallen foul of the slowdown penalty through the final chicane.
Yeah, and that's seeming to be quite an issue for these drivers today. They've all seem at some point to have some sort of issue through that final chicane, whether it be a slowdown penalty or just a mistake that's cost them a lot of time. It's a very tricky chicane to get right through here, and whenever you're in these MX-5s, momentum is crucial in these cars. That's how you make up the majority of your speed, is how much speed you can roll through the corners. So in that final chicane, it's very crucial. It leads you onto the front straightaway. So these drivers are really attacking it hard, and all that does is just open up the door for mistakes.
Yeah, someone mentioned in our lovely stream chat that we have going here that the dipping the nose out of the draft, like we discussed earlier, Tyler, might be to do with keeping the car temperatures cool, which is certainly an interesting one. And it's something you do see in the Skip Barber cars here on iRacing. They do tend to overheat a little bit in the draft. It might be a similar sort of situation here for the Mazdas, which is certainly a big one. But there we go. You see Victor Prieto now down the inside of Hugo, and Hugo won't fight it into the final chicane. So now Victor Prieto heads his way up into second place, but now he's around about 2 seconds adrift of David Perez, so it's a bit of a gap to try and make up. But as we've already seen, Tyler, in clear air, Prieto can still eat into gaps.
Oh, he most certainly can. He's definitely one of the quickest drivers in the field. And back to the comment, though, about keeping the car cool. It's something that these drivers really do have to deal with. It was something that we had to deal with last year, even in the real world driving these cars. These cars can overheat, and when they do, they lose quite a bit of horsepower. So keeping them cool is incredibly crucial to getting the lap time out of it. And Victor Pareto knows all about getting the lap time out of it. He's already started to close up on your race leader, David Perez.
Yeah, you can see previously lap 14 gained about 1/10 of a second, and that was in and amongst traffic as well. So this next lap is going to be absolutely brilliant for him if he's not able to commit any errors here. Ricardo Rico, though, might be in a bit of an interesting situation as he's currently looking to try and get past Ugo here, and he's getting very close to doing so as well. So Ugo, with that sort of short pit stop strategy in the first set of stops, he's gained a lot of track position here, but now he's steadily being cycled further and further back. Rico down the inside, a little bit more committed on the brakes there. Ugo will give him the space through the middle of the corner, and that's the pass only just done there by Ricardo Rico. Ugo will have the slipstream all the way into the final chicane, though, so there's still potential for him to come back at him here. He's actually pushing him down the back straight at the moment. A little bit of bump drafting going on between these two cars, but is Ugo going to go for the daring move to the inside of the final chicane, or is he going to drop back? It looks like he's already made his decision with the gap between those two, so Rico now secure on P3.
Yeah, and I think that was definitely the safer of the two. We're only halfway through this race, so you don't want to go in and throw away your race halfway through, especially in a championship where there is so much on the line for not only the teams, but also the Drivers' Championship. It's not worth the risk, especially in round one.
Yeah, not worth it, and especially when you still have one set of pit stops to go, I believe, here in this situation. If they came down 20 minutes, then they'll have to come down 20 minutes from the end of the race as well. Meanwhile, a little bit of a train going on for P10 at the moment. Martinez and Gomez around about half a second between the two of them at the moment. And these guys just looking for a good points haul here, I have to say, because, points do extend all the way down to 25th place. But for the top 10 points, this is the difference between 21 points for finishing 10th, and you got 26 points for finishing 8th as well. So this is where the points really do start to ramp up. So the positions from this point forwards really do start to get more valuable.
Yeah, they certainly do. And those 5 points, the difference, they don't sound like much, but that really could be all that separates you from winning and losing a championship. I mean, any points you can get can be crucial, especially those bonus points. Anytime you can get a bonus point over your competitor, it can prove to be incredibly valuable to you in the overall scheme of things. So the drivers now, I'm sure, will be pushing very hard, as there was someone nearly off and into the wall there, heading out of the hairpin.
Ferrario in that 555 car, teasing with the concrete wall at the very exit of the hairpin. Now Martinez will have a little bit of a run of speed as a result. Does he go for the move into the final chicane? He does, at least shows the nose, but sort of chickened out at the last minute, so he'll remain in line for now. Look at that over the curb, though, for that 555, and actually he's overcooked it a bit. Bit of contact with the wall of champions, and now Martinez heads his way around the outside for the left for the right-hand kink, and then the inside for turn 1 where he can complete this move. And he does so, so that's promoted into 9th place there for Martinez. Ferrero just having to take that one on the chin. He does have a teammate behind him here in this situation. I just gotten word that, the fastest lap of the race has been set by Victor Pareto at the moment. It's currently a 1:54.438. That is incredible stuff, and he's running in what is basically clear air at this point. He doesn't have any draft.
Yeah, and I mean, that is honestly not surprising that we've seen how fast Victor Pareto has been today, and he's just proved that with his fastest lap. That's going to be 2 extra bonus points for him here in this event, so that definitely a good one then for him. And if he finished where he sits right now, as actually we're looking here at a replay of, Montaner sends it down the inside, and he will make his way up into 11th place. That was quite the move there from him.
That was one where you back out or we're going to have an accident. That's the situation there into the chicane, getting past Yuri Gomez, I believe that was, in the number 69 car as they head their way into the hairpin in this situation. 27 minutes left remaining of this race. One more pit stop to go here for the drivers, which can certainly shake things up once again and keep things very, very interesting. What is interesting right now, at least as far as I can see, is the gap between your two race leaders. So those guys are getting very, very close. There we go. Just as I talk about it, it's up on screen for you now. 1 second between David Perez and Victor Prieto here. So we said that Prieto can, just deal with gaps in such a quite comfortable fashion, even in clear air. And look at that. Oh, my word. Bottom right of the screen, 0.4 of a second, lap 15. Lap 16, another 0.4 of a second being taken out. This guy's a monster.
Yeah, Victor Prieto, he is incredibly quick here. With 26 minutes left in this race, he certainly has quite a bit of time to get by David Perez and possibly another pit stop too, to be able to cycle out ahead of the MSI Esports drivers. So if we do indeed have another pit stop on our hands, and Victor Prieto hasn't gone by David Perez at that point, in my opinion, it wouldn't honestly be a bad strategy for him to possibly stay out another lap, and then don't even have to pass him on the racetrack, do the overcut or undercut on him, and that means that you're not losing time to your competitors behind.
Yeah, I mean, that would be the sort of the safest option for Prieto at the moment, because every time you go side by side, you are risking a bit of contact. You are risking having an unfortunate altercation with a barrier or another car. So it would be the safer option for him. But then again, this pit lane entry is kind of sketchy, where the drivers that are coming into pit actually have to brake much, much later than the cars taking the corner normally. So if you're kind of stuck behind, like in this situation here, it's going to be very hard for Prieto to pit first, which is why he now decides to go for the move around the outside for the first apex of the final chicane. Battle for the race lead then between Prieto and Perez here. They make contact through the final chicane, and Prieto, he might have to take another slowdown penalty as a result. He tried to go for the move. He tries now to serve the slowdown penalty, and that will allow Ricardo Rico through up into second place. But look at this. Prieto around the outside for the first apex, but there's only so much room coming through that section.
Yeah, that may be the hardest section on the entire racetrack to go 2x2. They tried it. It didn't work out. Victor Prieto now down into P3, and he has lost a lot of time to your race leader.
Yeah, it stands at around about 2 seconds to your race leader, plus he has to try and get past Ricardo Rico in second place right now. So that's the situation for your podium positions at the moment. Ferrario versus Montana here. Battle for P9 out there on circuit as we're sort of quickly approaching a final set of stops here, assuming 20-minute stints for these cars. So maybe some drivers wanting to get the track position now, or maybe just biding their time sitting behind their opponents and looking to try and get the fuel saving underway and get the jump inside those stops. But Montana currently inside the top 10, which would be a good finish considering the caliber of field that we have here today. It's 5,000 iRating strength of field here, so these drivers are not slow by any means. They're some of the fastest drivers on the service outside a World Championship competition. So I would be happy with the top 10 here.
Yeah, same with me. I think that this is definitely, like you said, one of the highest levels of competition outside of a World Championship that you can get to, especially in a series that runs multiple different cars. You don't usually see drivers of this caliber running the MX-5. It's usually a rookie car in iRacing, and there's a few drivers who will also run it in C-Class, but drivers for the most part don't really use the MX-5 all that often. But it's wonderful to see that some of the best drivers on the service going to battle in one of the slowest cars on the service.
Oh, a little bit of a slide from Ferrario through the final chicane. Give a little bit of momentum away to Montana here. Just dips that nose out to try and keep the radiators cool in that Mazda. Also to maybe scare his opponent into a mistake as well. Through that first sector, Montana trying to haul himself up into P number 9. Meanwhile, back towards the front of the field. You can see Rico now. He's kind of locked onto the back of Perez, and Rico's been gaining a lot of time as well. It certainly helped with the side-by-side battle between Perez and Prieto. Speaking of, Prieto's already in P3 and already looking to try and get himself back involved in this one. That's how crazy that he's been throughout this race. But now it's a three-horse race for P1 at the moment, and if those speed figures are true from Rico, then he has the potential to, also kind of do similar to what Victor Prieto did here with Perez and actually actively going chasing for this race win.
Yeah, he most certainly does then, and it seems to me that David Perez is definitely not as quick as the two behind him, but he has the crucial track position, which means he's just able to stick out in the race lead, and really it's one thing to catch a guy around Montreal. It's another thing to actually pass him, because this track has very limited passing opportunities. And when you do get a run on somebody, some of the times it's even hard to get alongside of them just due to the nature of the circuit. But Ricardo Rico isn't going to have any troubles with that, as David Perez is going to dive down to pit lane, and they're actually going to go side by side here through the last corner. Rico with a mistake, and now that's going to allow Victor Prieto through.
Yeah, Prieto has the runner speed out of the corner. That pit stop commitment from Perez caused a little bit of confusion behind, because Rico, who's expecting to go for a move down the inside, all of a sudden Perez heads his way down in. Rico, perhaps distracted, had outbroken himself into the corner, and Prieto just capitalizes on it. He didn't think about lifting or even touching the brake coming through the chicane there. He just slings it around the outside of Rico here. We'll get another look. The commitment down to the pit lane for Perez. Rico trying to get back in line, but the thing is, his fate has already been sealed. And look at Prieto, just so much speed coming through there. That's absolutely brilliant stuff. And now he's able to get, well, provisionally the race lead away. But of course, the rest of these cars do have to come down towards the pit lane at some point.
They most certainly do. But for Ricardo Rico, I think what he tried to do there is he tried to judge his braking point off the driver ahead of him. It's something that a lot of drivers do, especially whenever you're going for an out-braking maneuver. And then whenever he finally realized that David Perez was diving into the pit lane, he had to slam on the brakes to try and make that chicane there, and that just allowed Victor Prieto to get up into the race lead, and that may be what seals the deal there, but he did lose a lot of time going side by side with Ricardo Rico through the chicane, so Perez may be in a pretty nice position here.
Yeah, he might just be. The thing is, do these cars that did remain out there, do they come down in this time by, or can they go the extra lap? That's the issue. It'd be better for them to all pit at the same time and avoid any more confusion coming down into the chicane this time around. But let's see what the decision is from Prieto, from Rico, from Ugo as well, who also is involved here. So Rico stays out there at very last moment. Prieto down on towards the pit lane. Same with Ugo, same with Lopez Adesanya as well. You can see those two MSI Esports cars come down in towards the pit lane, but Ricardo Rico staying at one extra lap and was basically the only front runner to do so.
And here you can see a track map, was a track map on the screen between the two, but we'll have to keep an eye then on where David Perez comes out. Here he is up on your screen, the MSI Esports driver. Where will he file out in comparison to Victor Prieto? Then the other question will be, where does Ricardo Rico file out? Perfect chicane then by David Perez that time. And we'll have to see where will Prieto cycle through this time. He hasn't even moved yet, so David Perez may have pulled out an amazing strategy and been able to come out with a nice, healthy race lead here.
Look at that. Securely ahead coming through the first sector. It's a decent gap between him and his competitors that were previously very close to him coming down on towards the pit lane. But it's going to be Perez that provisionally, well, he's 7th place right now, but all the cars ahead of him have to come down on towards the pit lane at some point. It was actually a pretty long stop by Perez, at least as if I'm seeing this correctly here, because he had 25.6 seconds stationary on the lane, whereas the rest of the drivers that came down in 21.5, sort of 23.5 as well. So that was still a long stop for Lopez, but somehow able to come out ahead of everyone else. So that's going to be an interesting one, and it actually will sort of show more. Oh, as we see Lopez, actually, he's getting swamped and has contact. There's an MSI Esports car around. And that is Victor Lopez there. That is very unfortunate for him, getting tagged around by the S2V Esports car there. That was the 303, which is actually Victor Preto. So this is Preto getting into a little bit of a tangle with the cars that haven't come down on towards the pit lane just yet. And that's another couple of instant points for Preto. So he's got to be careful here for the final 15 minutes, because otherwise he might be risking a penalty.
Yeah, and that's certainly not what you want to have happen there. You don't want to get a drive-through penalty, because that would be race ending. But for right now, Victor Preto, he's got other major issues on his hands, because he's nowhere near the front of the field now.
Yeah, he's spent a lot of time on this outlap just dealing with traffic. And you can see David Perez, he's already headed his way towards the start-finish line here, picking up those positions. Is he able to get out ahead of Rico, though? That is the big question, and it looks like, can't quite tell, looks like Rico has actually gone through already, as far as I can see. There we go, graphic up on screen. Rico with that extra lap, he's got a 3-second advantage over Perez now.
Yeah, a very healthy advantage does Rico have at this stage, and I mean, he's all that stop able to now capitalize on the race lead. And the driver who, really, I don't think either of us would have put the money on Ricardo Rico to come out with the lead. But after everything that's happened, he's now sitting on the race lead, and that's what, well, the provisional race lead at least, that's what having a clean out lap and a clean in lap can do for you.
He was 18 seconds stationary on the pit lane compared to everyone else's around about 22 and 23 seconds. That is a massively short pit stop there for Ricardo Rico. Either he's been doing some brilliant fuel saving through the first 3 quarters of this race, or he's actually taking a little bit of short fuel here and to try and gain track position. Those are the only 2 options that I can really think of right now. Carvalho heads his way on towards the pit lane in a couple of moments' time. If not now, it looks like. So he's just going to surrender that provisional race lead away. So Rico now will be scored your race leader in just a couple of moments' time. Meanwhile, Montana and Ferrero, they're currently in P10 and P11, still stuck together a little bit here. Ferrero will have the draft on the way in towards that final chicane, and will have a decent run of speed here, all things considered, just cycling through those gears at the moment. You can see this absolute train of cars, though. There's one of the S2V Esports cars. I think that's Victor Preto heading their way through. Right up now, there's the 303. So Preto, he's in P8 at the moment. That is a huge, huge loss for him, and he's, by all assessments, the fastest car in this race right now. He just isn't in the position to show it.
Yeah, he certainly is, and yeah, like you said, just a little bit down the order, and that could cost him majorly, though, in the championship. David Perez, you can see now up on your screen, he's all over the back here of the number 119. And he just tapped the wall there, and look at how far out ahead Ricardo Rico is now.
Look at that down the inside of Hugo, though, goes David Perez. He knows time is of the essence when it comes to catching a race leader, but Hugo's able to hold on in that one. So the driver of the 119 holding on to position right now from your pole position sitter of David Perez. He'll get the bonus points as a result of getting that pole position, but he so desperately wants to finish just a couple of steps higher on the podium. First car on the list is Oya Hugo, but the thing is, Hugo with that defensive move and able to maintain position, he's certainly going to fight things here right at the very end of the race into the final hairpin. 13 minutes left remaining. Still some time for David Perez to try and get this move done and then go chasing for your race leader. But look at the gap. 5 seconds between Rico and Hugo at the moment. So even if Perez gets this pass, it will still be a tall order to catch your race leader.
Yeah, it most certainly will here. And from the pace that we've seen, as they're actually going to go side by side down into the final corner, Perez is going to get the move easily. And Hugo is going to have to slot back into third. But from the pace that we've seen from David Perez, he hasn't had superior pace to the rest of these drivers all day today pretty much, except for that first little bit of the race. He's kind of fallen off ever since then. And I think it's just going to be too tall of an order for him to catch up 5 seconds in 12 minutes.
Well, he's working at it. That's simply what you have to do at this point. David Perez, 12 minutes to catch up around about 4.5 to 5 seconds. It sounds difficult. It is difficult, but perhaps not impossible, especially if Ricardo Rico, to try and get to the end of the race, actually has to do a bit of clear air fuel saving here, because he took an 18-second stop, whereas the rest of the field pretty much took above 20. So if he has taken a short fuel here, then he'll have to be conservative about his fuel numbers and might drop back because he's trying to manage that.
Yeah, but one of the things, though, is that Ricardo Rico never led in this race. He always sat in behind and was just content with sitting in the draft. I would be willing to put my money on that he was just saving fuel and waiting for this final pit stop so that he could take the shortest pit stop possible and have the least amount of time on pit lane. And if he did that and worked it out to perfection, then that's going to be an incredible strategy then from Ricardo Rico.
Alex Adesanya on board with him right now. MSI Esports looking to try and battle with the S2V car ahead. That is going to be the car of Maturana as they head their way out of that hairpin. 11 minutes to go in this race. Adesanya with the slipstream all the way into the final chicane here. You can see the gap up on screen, 2.5 tenths. That's just going to come down and down and down. More and more. Adesanya down. Late move there towards the right-hand side, and that was actually more Maturana braking very early for the chicane there and just trying to let that MSI Esports car through, but I don't think Adesanya was really expecting that to happen.
No, I think he was almost morally content with just sitting behind through the chicane, but when the opportunity arose for himself, he slammed it down the inside and was able to make the move up into 4th position. Now, I think that they got quite a bit of a gap up to P3, so it's going to be quite a tall order for him. I think the top 3 right now is pretty much set where they are unless they have major amounts of contact.
Yeah, Xavi Ross and the driver of the 71 there, that's Beza. It's NWS versus Zenith Esports here, just outside the top 10. Although, they do have that 10th place car just directly ahead of them, so it's certainly possible for them to try and haul themselves up into a top 10 finish here. That is the car of Victor Preto, I believe, and down the inside they go. They're not hanging around at all. Both of them might be able to get the pass done here. Preto will try desperately to have that not happen. He's already lost 1 position and won't have a ton of speed coming off the sweeper here. So now that other car can head their way down the inside of him to try and secure a top, at least an 11th place finish here. Beza trying to battle with him down into the next chicane, and he's been able to work his way through. Preto must have some form of damage right now.
Yeah, I don't see how he wouldn't. I mean, Victor Preto had such pace in the early going of this race, and even all the way through this race, he has had incredible pace, and something happened in that pit stop period where he has just lost a ton of speed.
Yeah, it's incredible. I mean, he has had bits of contact with other cars, but he seemingly was fine immediately after, but now he doesn't seem to have the pace at all, even over the mid-back runners. Meanwhile, inside the top 5, you see Maturana there. He's going to try and... Well, he has Adesanya ahead of him in the MSI Esports car there. Just to give you a bit of an update in terms of the gap to the race leader. I just saw it scroll through at the very top. Around about 3 seconds between Rico and Perez right now. So Perez is really, really just trying to wring some lap time out of that thing to try and catch your race leader. And he's making good progress for now. But at this rate, he'll only be close enough, what, 1-2 laps from the end?
Yeah, he certainly won't be very far off the end of the race here. So we're right on board with Sergei Maturana. Chasing down the number 27 MSI Esports. He's done an MSI Esports sandwich right now. The 27 is up in 4th and the 17 down in 6th.
Oh, apparently we've got a report from our lovely international feed producer that Victor Preto has a sticking brake. So it's not damage to the car in sim, it's damage to his actual hardware that he's actually using to control it. So that is unfortunate, and that'll be a massive reason why he's lost a lot of speed here. That's unfortunate there for Victor Prieto. He had so much speed. He was looking to try and win this race at points, but now hardware issues mean that he's having a huge amount of trouble, and so is his teammate there into the hairpin. Maturana losing position there to Victor Lopez. So he's able to hit his way through. So the S2V esports cars, they're having a bit of a nightmare at the moment.
Yeah, they really aren't having the greatest race. Are the S2V esports cars pretty much just hanging on here for whatever they can get? But what an unfortunate incident there for Victor Prieto. Like you said, he had so much pace early going in this race, was challenging for the race lead, and then a hardware failure is what is going to bring him down then in the end. And at this point, it's pretty much just about hoping that it doesn't get any worse and gaining as much points as you possibly can, because the championship still isn't over after round one. It's just going to make it a whole lot harder.
Yeah, you have to work twice, 3 times as hard in the next couple of races to try and recover the points lost from this one through no fault of his own. Sometimes it just happens, in both in real-life motorsports and in sim racing as well. You have these sorts of outside influences that sort of put a damper on your race. But look at that, 2 seconds between Rico and Perez at the moment, and Perez has a friend. He has Hugo just like sitting inside his slipstream right now. So Hugo's basically using Perez to, but perhaps have a little bit of a shot at a race win here in the dying couple of laps.
Yeah, I mean, with that kind of pace, they certainly will.
That's a big contact there, Rico, with the wall. Not sure if you saw that, Tyler, but that was a huge amount of sparks flying.
I just missed them, but Rico right now, he needs to be worried about the driver in second place, because he is coming on strong and he brings a friend with him. Hugo is just tucked in behind the number 95 MSI Esports of David Perez, and he is just letting him tow him up to your race leader. And if with 5 minutes left to go, they will get about 2 to 3 more laps. So Rico could be in trouble here if this race goes 3 more laps.
He could be. That's a big thing. So now we'll just have to wait and see exactly what happens here, because the more laps we run, the worse Rico's going to be feeling about this whole situation. He wants this to end pretty much now, but we still got 5 minutes left in this race. Perez closing in. It's only within a second now at this point in towards that first sector. Perez, he started on pole position. He's had a pretty up and down race as far as his performance has been concerned, but now he has the chance to make up for it. Trying to haul himself into the race lead a couple of laps before the end. Look at that, lap 28, 1.5 seconds being lopped off that gap. We said it was a tall order, and Perez has done it in about 10 minutes.
Yeah, Perez has taken to the challenge here, and he is all up on the back of Ricardo Rico. Only 0.4 of a second separate them this time. 4 minutes left in the race. They should get, I think, 1 lap to go, or maybe 2 laps to go this time by at the stripe. So not long left for Ricardo Rico and David Perez here. Perez all up on the back then of Ricardo Rico as they head through. That he gets so close to the wall, but that's what makes up the time here. Ricardo Rico is in trouble with David Perez all over him.
Into the hairpin, no move from Perez so far, but look at the mid-corner speed. He gives the leader a bit of a bump coming through the hairpin, looking for a line off the corner. Perez won't have the speed to make that one work, so he can tuck back in the slipstream there, but that was a big aggressive statement from Perez through the middle of the hairpin, and now he looks to try and make it work. Coming down the back straight, don't forget Hugo in that 119 could still get involved here. Could look to make it 3 wide into the final chicane, which is never going to work. So single file they go instead into the trickiest part of the racetrack. Those 2 tires up but over the curb. Perez so close to the concrete wall on the outside. Across the line, 3 minutes left to go to sort out the differences here for your podium spots. Which order are these guys going to finish in?
That is the biggest question mark now. There was 2 laps to go. Next time will be the final lap. And David Perez, we're right on board with him. You can just see how close he is to race leader Ricardo Rico. He is closing that gap down, and he is all up over the back, but they have to be careful because there is still another driver behind them, and they don't want to get too tangled up and end up costing themselves both the opportunity to race lead. Rico having to defend, Perez looking everywhere.
Yeah, he's trying to find that mid-corner speed as well, but he just has a car parked on the front of his nose. Such a difficult situation for Perez, and now he's really feeling the fact that you can't make easy passes around here, and Rico can pull up the defense to try and keep that number 95 behind, looking towards the outside through the next chicane. Still not going to find much ground through there. Ugo on the back of this has a runner speed coming through that final chicane as Perez, he grazes the wall out of it, and now Ugo can challenge for P2 into that hairpin. He has a car, half a car's length advantage into here, but still has to try and do it around the outside. Perez gets very close to the back of your race leader, but Rico can get the best speed off, as now Ugo, he's looking to not be the bridesmaid, he wants to be the bride.
Yeah, he is going for it now. 2 by 2, he's in the draft of your race leader, Ricardo Rico. This may be a great opportunity here for Ugo to slot up into second. I think he will do just that. Perez has to drop back in line here, and as they head through now, they will see the white flag in the air. One more lap to go here at Montreal.
Yeah, absolutely. Ugo then to the start-finish line he goes in second place right now, and he's now the driver that has the big opportunity to try and take this race lead away from Ricardo Rico. It was a massive strategy call for Rico to put himself in this situation. Massive fuel saving through the first portion of the race. It all matters. It all pays dividends in the final stop, and now he leads this race. It was a 5-second gap after the pit stops, but it's been eaten into by both Perez and Ugo in this situation, and now he has to defend for his life, looking to try and duel into the first sweeper, but that's going to be Ricardo Rico winning out in that particular mini duel, that particular look from Ugo. Again, very close to getting into the wall, coming off the corner, and they do so in the last couple of laps, coming through this next chicane. Ugo looking towards the outside to try and find a line. The 51 has it covered, though. Takes the apex quite competently. Careful about this wall, though. You can see how close Rico especially was to getting tangled with it. And now these 3 cars, your podium finishers, hit their way into the hairpin for the final time in this race. Rico, he's in the best seat in the house right now, but Ugo's in the second best, and he looks to try and wrestle that one away from Rico coming down the back straight. It's going to be a straight-up duel into the final chicane between these cars to see who comes away with race 1 in the European SimRacing Masters here. Ugo with the runner speed, with the draft, outside line for the first apex of the final chicane. Can he complete the move around the outside? It's a duel for the race win on the brakes. Ugo around the outside, brilliant move. He cuts the course though, he won't be a race winner. Here comes Perez as well with the runner speed. Can he get to the line first? He's giving me 3 wide across the line here, and you can see that Perez, oh, it's too close to call. It is simply way too close. We'll have to see the official timing, but I think Perez might have just come away with it.
I'm not honestly sure. Then we have 2 contradicting information. The information at the top of the screen says that Rico won, but according to the lab graphic there, it was Perez who won. You can just see, oh, Perez gets the win. But a little bit of contact is the only thing that cost him. It's been so hard to go through that chicane 2 by 2, but Ugo had to try it.
Look at that. This is so close to call. Perez getting 2 tires into the grass to make that happen. That's ridiculous. Wow, that is an awesome, awesome finish that we've just seen. The official gap at the end there was 36 thousandths of a second between P1 and P2. That is incredibly dramatic. That's one of the most dramatic finishes I have ever seen in any sort of sim racing event. You see, Ugo, he did get himself Rico, the slowdown penalty through the final chicane, so he probably won't end up finishing in second place here. We'll have to in third place here, so we'll have to see how that one works out. But oh my word, What an incredible thing we've witnessed here for the end of round 1 in the European Sim Racing Masters. David Perez, 36 thousandths of a second over Ricardo Rico. Ugo, provisionally 3rd place, and I think he'll still be secure there with that slowdown penalty, 2.6 seconds behind your race leader. Sergey Maturana, P4, Alex Adazana, P5, Victor Lopez finishes 6th with Diego Martinez in P7. Sergio Ferrero in P8, Mark Montana and Adrian Beza round out your top 10. It was an MSI, Zenith, and High Speed Demons podium here. So 3 different teams, 3 different drivers on the podium here today. Good day for MSI Esports, though, with Adazana and Lopez picking up some decent points in P5 and P6. Xavi Ross misses out on the top 10 for MWS Esports, but it was not a great day for S2V Esports. Victor Preto, fastest car today by every metric, but not the finishing results. P12 for him. David Jimenez in P13. Thiago Favallo in P14. Fenolosa in P15. Ricardo Silva in P16. Yuri Gomez 17th. Loscos 18th. Media Villa in 18th place. Busquets 20th. And then you have your final cars here today. Asensio with an instant finishes towards the end of the leading lap. We've got Pepo Heras in 22nd, Josep Prat in P23, and then you have Morales and Romero rounding out your 25 car finishing results. And oh my word, we won't actually go to a break here, so we're just going to have to catch our breath live on air, but oh my word, Tyler, that finish was just ridiculous.
Yeah, that was certainly a finish then to round number 1 of the European Sim Racers Masters. That is what this circuit provides. It provides some of the best racing out there, especially whenever you put MX-5s on it. It really does deliver, and it did again today. What a finish we just saw.
It was brilliant to witness. It's Victor Preto. His race was so tough. It had all the trials. It had all the tribulations. You know, getting passed by Victor Preto relatively easily, getting chased down by Preto, battling within that top 5. But in the final lap, out of the final corner, he goes from basically P3 to the race win. That's incredible.
Yeah, it certainly is. And I could just see he was biding his time there. He knew going down into the final chicane was never going to work with those 2 out ahead. And he was able to capitalize on it and able to come home with the race win.
Yeah, he was. Absolutely brilliant stuff from Preto. He gets those pole position bonus points. He gains the maximum in the race. The only thing that didn't go his way was the fastest lap. That still goes to Victor Preto. So he'll pick up P12 points and the couple of bonus points from second the fastest lap. So, you know, it's not going to do much to make him happy, though, I suppose, for Preto, because under any normal circumstances, if he didn't have that brake issue, he'd definitely be in the running for the race lead, if not taking it.
Yeah, he certainly would have if he hadn't have had that issue, but it's just part of racing and sim racing sometimes. Some of the time there is issues, but it's all about how he bounces back in the next few rounds. The championship is certainly not over by any stretch. He can still win it. It's just going to be quite the challenge to do so.
Yeah, it is. So, not the greatest of starts to stage 1 for Victor Preto, but the best start for Perez as he takes the race win. Ricardo Rico as well. We got to give massive props to him because he was sort of the dark horse of the race, so to speak. You know, through the first 3 quarters of the race, we weren't really talking all that much about him, but he pulls the strategy out the bag, has a 5-second advantage due to the amount of fuel saving that he was doing, and he almost took it at the end, but so cruelly taken away by 36 thousandths of a second.
Yeah, I mean, that's about as close as you can get then on a finish there. But what a way to lose a race, and also what a way to win a race, depending on who you are then. Definitely a close one indeed.
Yeah, it was absolutely awesome to witness, and if the next couple of races are going to be exactly like that, then I'm going to look forward every single time to broadcasting this series, because that was absolutely brilliant, and the amount of respect given between the 2 drivers as well. There weren't really that many car-to-car contacts throughout the race, and for what they were just little taps, a little bit of a door rub, but everything else, it seemed like it was very clean and very respectful by all the drivers involved. And it's so easy, if you're in a battle for the first couple of positions towards the end of the race like that, to just go for an almighty send down the inside and not care what happens to the other car. But those guys kept it very, very respectful, which is what I love to see.
Yeah, they certainly did. And I mean, talk about a great battle then. Next time out, Lime Rock Park, February the 9th. That track is about as close as you could possibly want to get then, is Lime Rock Park. I mean, there is no place for mistakes. If you do, there is a wall, most of the time very close to you, and the action's always very, very close.
Yep, it always is as well. Lime Rock Park is one of the first tracks that you get to experience on the roadside of iRacing, and it's certainly a tricky track in some respects as well. It's not, again, it's similar to Circuit Gilles Villeneuve in that there aren't a lot of overtaking opportunities. Of course, you have that big one in towards turn number 1 for the first time, and it looks like we won't be getting any interviews right now, because it seems like there's a little bit of confusion about whether drivers want to go and have a Spanish interview or an English interview. So we'll just have to wait and see what the situation is there. Of course, we had been broadcasting this race in Spanish over on ECI Esports _ES. The Twitch page, so those guys no doubt be doing a fantastic job. And I know for a fact one thing I'm going to be doing at the end of this broadcast is going and see how they reacted to that final lap.
Yeah, I certainly will be as well. And I think we actually do have one driver waiting for an interview. I believe we have Ricardo Rico.
Yeah, we do. So
waiting.
We'll drag him into the commentary booth. Ricardo, what a race that you've had, and what a close finish right at the end there. Has your heart rate come down yet?
Hello. First of all, my English is not perfect, but I'm going to try it a bit, okay? And yes, what a hot finish of the race. I had no tires. I had a bit of damage of the car, and it was all or nothing. And I tried, and and very close.
Yeah, very close. It was 36 thousandths of a second, which is one of the closest finishes that I personally have ever seen in iRacing. We noticed that you had a very interesting strategy. In that final pit stop, you took a lot less time on the pit lane than other drivers. Just take me through what you were doing at the start of the race to try and save fuel, to try and make that final stop as short as it was.
Well, I saved fuel at the start of the race, but it was more about not changing tires. David and Oyer changed tires, and I didn't, and that's why I exit of the box with maybe 3 seconds, and that's what I had, less pace and and a bit of how would I say, and these 3 seconds to race and to wait the final of the race and defend.
Yeah, and defend you tried, but through the final chicane, through the final corner, there was a slowdown penalty involved with one of the front runners, and of course you coming across the line with Perez with so little time between the two of you. Did you at the end of the race just had to take a moment pause and just think about whether you'd actually won the race or not, just waiting for iRacing to update?
No, I was watching to the left, and I was seeing David a bit more advantage to me, and I knew what was the result, but that is what we have, and it's okay. I suppose it's a very good race, and there are good points to the championship.
Yeah, still a very good points haul, and that's certainly a positive way of thinking about it. Second place it really sets you up for the start of the season here. Do you think that these similar results, P2s, P3s, might happen in the next couple of races as well for you?
Well, I hope to be on the podium, but I also hope to win races, you know.
Hmm.
And I also want to win, and I will try, but it's not about result, obviously. Pichu.
Yeah, I mean, you were so close to winning the race today. It's the tiniest of margins. But before we wrap up the broadcast, is there anyone you want to thank? Is there anyone you want to talk about here?
Yep, I want to thank my team. We work as a team. We work to how will I say to make the set the best possible, and we work to race together, to be with the very best form to the race, and also my team bosses, which I love too much.
I'm sure they'll appreciate your performance here today, getting so close and getting yourself a P number 2. But thank you very much for joining us, and we'll actually move on to your race winner in just a couple of moments here, as we can actually bring David Perez into the commentary booth here. Hopefully he's around, and Tyler, you've got this one.
David, what a race from you then in the end. It was extremely close heading down to the line. I think Connor said it was like 36 1/1000ths of a second. That's about as close as you can get for a race win.
Yeah, it was like super. I was super lucky in the last chicane, also because I was within 3x from the stop and go penalty. So I had to lift in the last lap and let them to race together till the last corner and wait till they crash, and they did it, so I could win the first race of this championship, and that's it. I was very lucky in the last chicane.
Yeah, but you certainly played that one to perfection. It was a very close race all the way through. We saw you kind of go to the front, then have a bit of issues after the last pit stop, kind of fall back a little bit, and then you made an absolute charge towards the front and towards Ricardo Rico. You were able to get it in the end, but that was, I mean, that's a long race, especially whenever everyone is just so close.
Yeah, the last pit stop I saw that Ricardo didn't change tires, so I thought immediately that I had win the race, but I had a slowdown in the second lap after the pit stop. I had to recover 6 seconds, but anyway, the difference between new tires and used tires were like enormous. So I had the opportunity to catch Ricardo, and luckily again I had the choice I had the opportunity to win this race. So.
Yeah, but you certainly did it well then in the end. You were able to come away with it, and it was just so close. Looking forward into next round at Lime Rock Park, what are you expecting from that track? Because I know that track is very fast, and some of the time, some drivers really like it and some drivers really dislike it. So what's your kind of preference on Lime Rock?
I think that having the experience from Montreal in the fast corners, the MX-5 is like super crazy, and having that new chicane in the Lime Rock Park, it would be like super complicated. And I think that the goal is to make another win again and keep the momentum going. So I think that it's gonna be an exciting race again, and hopefully I can win again.
We'll have to wait and see. That next one will be on February the 9th. But before we let you go, David, who gets it done for you?
Sorry?
Who do you want to thank? Sorry.
The team. It was an amazing week of work. First with the quali, without their tow I wouldn't be able to make the pole. That make the race a little bit easier. So that's for them. Thanks for the work with the setup, with the tow, with the racecraft. Everything is for them.
Well, congratulations once again on a race win here in round number 1 from Gilles Villeneuve.
Well, there we go. That was David Perez, race winner here today by only 36 thousandths of a second over Ricardo Rico. Brilliant finish from all drivers involved there. That's all that we're going to have time for here on RaceSpotTV. Of course, streaming on ACI Esports here for the European Sim Racing Masters. I've been Connery Maddock. I've been joined by Tyler Maxson. Very well done to all of the drivers involved in this first round of the season. The road to 6,000 euros has started, and the first round has been completed. David Perez on the top of the pile, heading into Lime Rock Park. But join us for that in the not too distant future. We'll see you guys whenever we get to see you.